Good evening and welcome to another evening of TGP1. This time we're going to be at Portugal for this first race, and the second race is going to be at Spain. As you can see, it's nice and clear, nice and dry. Just under 5 minutes to go. We've got the Confessor currently on what I would suspect is his final set of soft tyres. Currently purple in Sector 1, a 17.1 opposed to Cam's 17.382. So I definitely think the Confessor can find a bit more time here. The Confessor does lead the driver's title at the minute as well, after winning quite comfortably. So yeah, really. A few big hitters that are missing tonight, unfortunately. Glock and well, not a big hitter anymore, unfortunately, this season, but Kieran also is missing, and there we go. He's half a tenth up, is the Confessor. Is he going to get a bit of a slipstream from the car ahead of him? I think he may do, and actually no, he doesn't. He gets straight out of the way there, but that may have potentially cost the Confessor slightly, but we will see. And here we go then, through the final corner at Portugal. You want to keep it nice and tight to shorten that run, and across line. Is he going to improve? He should do. There he goes, a tenth and a half, so he actually makes quite a bit of time up in that final sector, as we've got New Zealand Cam on an outlap. Aidan Griffin's supposedly 2 and a bit tenths up on his lap, currently sitting in P4. It's always hard when you go on board with someone midway through, as it's not always 100% accurate. We have got Alistair Bain, who I think is, well, he's not on a lap, or he's actually just started and he nearly loses it there. So that's ruined his lap immediately. So is he going to pit? No, he's going to keep going round. I think that's him probably done, or he's going to try and go on an out lap again. A second lap, as Aidan Griffin then comes round the final corner, tries to avoid the curb on the right hand side. Don't take too much, because it can sometimes spit you out. Keep it to the right. He does keep it to the right quite a lot, right in the middle there. And is he going to improve on his lap? He is up to P3, 17.5 there, as New Zealand Cam then. It said it was 4 tenths up, but again, that's clearly not accurate. And yeah, there's not really much going on at the minute. It seems JD is on a... He's not even using any of his ERS, so he's just started using his ERS now. So, yeah, unsure there. Matt Tibos, what's he going to do? Currently P15 with no time set. Only P9. I think he'd be quite disappointed with that. A significant way off the Confessor at the minute. And, I don't want to be biased, but I definitely think the Confessor is going to win the title this season. Don't tell him I told you, but I reckon it's going to be the case. But here we go then. So let's have a look who's been on what. So everyone's currently on the soft tyres, so that's always a good shout. Dom Smith then currently on what looks like a lap with his ERS going down, so that's good. There's a yellow flag in that middle sector. That's just the Red Bull getting out of the way ahead of him there, so that's perfectly fine. About 70-metre board you want to be braking there. Slight miss of the apex, quite understeery, and then you want to get good traction out of there to get on the power. So what is Dom Smith going to do? Is not too bad at the minute. P8 currently. So we'll see. He tends to, I think, qualify better than he races sometimes, at least this season so far. But as a big boy Ewan has joined, I believe he is a reserve, and Dom Smith just under 2.5 tenths up on his lap at the minute. So we'll see. We'll follow him through until the end of this lap to see where he goes. He's got to find just over a tenth to improve to P7, but he may get down depending on how well he's done in this final sector. And CJH moves up to P6, so not bad from him as we're on board with Dom. And then Dom goes into P6, so he finds a nice margin of time in that final sector there. So that is always good then. So that's not bad. And we've got Jack Pearson here, very tentative. We've got the Haas off there, and Dom Smith moving out of the way. So that's all right there. But Jack Pearson, so far, I don't think he's spun, which is quite surprising. He usually spins quite a lot, but I'm sure he's probably saving that for the race itself. So yes, and we're going to go ahead. And CJH has been disqualified, so he probably got beached when we saw him on the exit of turn 1 and entry to turn 2. So unfortunate for him there, really, and that's qualifying over then. The Confessor does not improve, Aidan Griffiths does not improve, Dan the Man does not improve, and Matt Tibos does not improve, and neither does Mayor Quimby there. So let's have a look, shall we? Jack Hickey is going to be him. So we'll go on board with Phil. He seems one of the further around there, and he's actually invalidated. So I'm talking absolute smack there. So is anyone on a fast lap? Jack Pearson is 7,000th and he's invalidated again. I'm talking rubbish there. So I pretty much think that is qualifying over, if I'm not mistaken. I am the only commentator tonight, so I'm doing it all on my own. A very difficult job at the best times there. So let's have a look at what Wet Lemons can do with that, and he does not improve on his position. And very finally, it appears to be Magic Poop Canna, but he has invalidated there. And yeah, that is qualifying done and dusted then. So you've got the pole man, the Confessor. I think he's got pole at every single race this season so far. So not a bad shout for him there. So the Confessor, well done, mate. New Zealand Cam, an improvement on what he's been doing this season so far when it comes to qualifying. P2, a bit of a margin way behind the Confessor, but you're the best of the rest there, so well done there. Aidan Griffins, shock. I wasn't expecting him to be that far up, but fair play to him there, 17.5. Jack Hickey, not really known, I think, for his qualifying pace. He definitely comes on stronger more in the race. Phil Bardwell, P5, oldest guy in TGP history at the ripe old age of 120. In P5, I think he'll be very happy with that, although he needs to be very careful of going too quick. He might break a bone. So very good in his Mercedes there. And yeah, Dom Smith, P6, a very good qualifying session from Dom. It is 9/10 off pole position, but I don't think he will be caring one bit. P6 and TGP1, less than a second off pole. Fair play there. CJH P7, but he has got a 5-place grid chop for, I think, getting beached on the exit of turn 1 and entry to turn 2, so not very good for him there. Dan the Man in his Ferrari, a bit of a disappointment, I think. Dan the Man, I think, would probably be expecting more. Jack Pearson, not bad there. Fair play. EOT Jordan making his TGP1 return. I don't think he raced last week or the week before that, so welcome back, Jordan. I hope league racing is going well for you this time. Alistair Bain, not too bad for him. I think he's not expecting too much more than that. And then obviously right behind Alistair is Matt Tibos. Again, a bit more of a disappointment from him there. I think he'll be wanting a lot more, and I think a lot of people would be expecting a little bit more as well, to be honest. So not the greatest for him, unfortunately, but he does always have good race pace, and he always seems to make good starts and avoids the carnage mostly. So we'll see how he gets on. And while we're loading into this as well, I will point out the point standings before tonight. Odems, the Confessor, 52 points, and it is raining for the race, so that's going to put a spanner in the works if you've ruined your tyres, your tyre pressures. Jean-Luc Taylor in P2, he's not here tonight. Jean, he's on 36 points. Dan the Man in P3, 25 points. Court P4, 22 points. New Zealand Cam, also 22 points in P5. Phil Bardwell, P6 on 18. Jack Hickman, 7th on 16. Aidan Griffins, 8th on 16 as well. 9th, CJH. As New Zealand Cam is disconnected. So that's disappointing from himself there. He was placed to actually challenge the Confessor this race. But, unless he can get back in pronto, that's really put a spanner in the works, unfortunately. So here we go then. 4 lights, 5 lights. It is intermediate tyres, and away we go then. So here we go. It's not a bad start from the Confessor there. And actually, the AI of New Zealand Cam is we get Aidan Griffins thinking about going around the outside there. So fair play there. He's around the outside of the Confessor. A bit of a tap there, and Aidan is in to the provisional lead as the Confessor taking it very gingerly at the minute, as we see the Haas on the inside going for a half spin there. A bit of contact with Dan the Man, unfortunately. So he's going a bit further down there. Matt Tibos has made a good start, which is nice to see there. So yeah, the Confessor losing out on Aidan Griffins at the minute, being very tentative into turn 1. There's no point losing everything into turn 1. You've got a long 17-lap race, as we see JD dropping down at the minute. I think he may have got a bit of a moment, unfortunately for himself, as we see all the cars very gingerly. He's got a yellow flag behind. I don't think that's anything as such. I think unfortunately, Big Boy Ewan has spun. He did not to participate in qualifying. But yeah, unfortunate for him there, as we see Court thinking of going up the inside, as New Zealand Cam still unfortunately has not rejoined, so I think he'll be raging internally. I think I would as well, to be honest, as now Matt Tibos makes another place up with that. So dropping down the field, but nothing I think New Zealand Cam can do there. And at the minute, it's a bit of a stalemate. Not really any moves going on, unfortunately. This does sometimes happen in the wet conditions. And actually, surprise, ERT Jordan, P4 at the minute. He is keeping Dan the Man honest, so quite surprising, as Jack Pearson has peeled into the pit, so I don't know if he got a bit of damage potentially there, as Court and Matt Tibos having a bit of a battle there. As we actually see just ahead of these two, CJH having a bit of a look at Jack Hickey there. CJH using a bit of his ears, and is he going to go up the inside? I think he is. Here we go then. Nice and easy up the inside. Don't outbreak yourself. Don't lock up. A nice move there as Jack Hickey is thinking about holding it around the outside, and he has. So fair play, and I think CJH is going to be using his ERS here. Yes, he is. He's using a lot more ERS than Jack Hickey, but it is a long race. There's no point ruining it at the minute. So again, don't make any mistakes. Tricky conditions. Last thing you want to do is just put it in a barrier or spin. So that's not bad. And he's actually got a 4/10 gap now to Jack Hickey. And actually, at the front, the Confessor, second behind Aidan Griffin. So Aidan Griffin's at this stage of the race is looking good, as we can see. Alistair and Phil Bardwell, I think, having a bit of a fight there. As we see now New Zealand Cam, as we see the house going off there of Magic Poop Cannon. So yeah, it's an interesting one, but very unfortunate for New Zealand Cam. I think as we see the big boy Ewan having a bit of a moment again there, as Aidan sets another fast lap, keeping the Confessor honest 1 second. But what's the ERS like? And actually, Aidan Griffin's is at 94% ERS, while the Confessor is 71. So at the minute, it looks like the Confessor has not quite got the outright pace on Aidan Griffin. So fair play to Aidan. Just don't make any mistakes. Do what you can, and it may be a win here. It's just going to be it's going to be tough. The Confessor is a TGP1 champion. Don't count him out of anything yet. He does make a lot of mistakes, it seems, at least last season, but this season he's clearly showing he's got that pace to fight yet again for a TGP1 title. And there's not really much going on at the minute. No real overtakes by the looks of it. I think the closest battle at the minute is probably Phil and Alistair, but it looks like Wet Lemons is actually just ahead of these two, having a bit of a moment, I think, at the minute. But yeah, and actually I think Aidan's made a mistake, because now the gap's down to 0.4 of a second. So yeah, but I think in the wet conditions it's definitely a lot harder to overtake and get on the power than what you really think. But yeah, not really much action, as it were. There's a lot of trains going on. It seems at the minute. CJH 48% ERS as the Confessor finally sets a fast lap, and CJH right there runs a bit wide. He's going to use a lot of his ERS. He's going to make a move into turn one on ERT Jordan. I don't think he's going to be quite far. No, just a bit too far back there, as we see Wet Lemons in the pit. But CJH is the first to get a penalty, and he's thinking up the inside there, but he thinks better of it there. But there is a bit of a train forming behind Dan the Man in P3 as well, it seems, all the way down, by the looks of it, all the way down to, well, P11. And then there's a bit of a gap between Dom Smith and Phil, so there's sort of two trains going on at the minute, one behind Dan the Man in P3, and then one behind Phil Bardwell in P12. So yeah, it's close, but there's not really any action, as we see Magic Poop Cannon right on the backside of Big Boy Ewan. So the fact that Big Boy Ewan did not do any qualifying and he's jumping into this somewhat blind is not doing too bad. He's ahead of a few drivers, but Magic Poop Cannon is more TGP2 pace, I think, than outright TGP1 pace. So yeah. But my thoughts on this track, while there's not really much going on, it's not bad. It's definitely more of a bike circuit. It's an okay circuit. It's not my favourite personally. We didn't do this circuit last season in TG1, as we see CJH. They're getting a bit wide on the exit of turn one onto that main straight. As Jack Hickey has now got a run on CJH, but he's still not using his ERS. Jack Hickey. I don't think the ERS management or the overall ERS regen. I don't think it's particularly amazing around here, just because there's such a long main straight and not really many heavy braking zones. Actually, I'm going to look at this now. The Confessor up at the front is attacking Aiden. He's going to go around the outside. He's thinking about it. He's going to hold it around the outside. Is Aiden going to push him off? Aiden nice and defensive there, but he does have the exit, the Confessor is, and going into the next corner, the Confessor is into P1. So I think the Confessor was just biding his time there as the Confessor actually runs it a bit wide. So Aiden's going to have that run a bit better, and Aiden has got a bit more ERS than the Confessor, and Aiden's going to try and hold it round the outside. He's going to bring him on the inside of this next corner, holds the Confessor off, holds that line, and Aiden is back into P1. So Aiden playing it very nice at the minute as the Confessor. At this stage of the race, actually looks like he's potentially got a bit more pace than Aiden Griffins, but Aiden, for whatever reason, is doing well at this circuit, and it might be the conditions, it might be the circuit itself, that people don't really have much experience on this game, but Aiden Griffin's doing well, holding off the Confessor. I don't think he'd have been expecting that before tonight, as there's a 2.5 second gap to P3, so these two can battle as much as they want, really. As Mayor Quimby surprisingly sets the fastest lap, so he'll be using his ERS and getting that slipstream as Phil Bardwell now, but going defensive there is Aiden. I'm going to stay with this battle because it's probably the only real battle on the circuit, as JD unfortunately gets a penalty there. But there we go then, the Confessor using his ERS, but so is it. Actually, no, Aiden isn't using his ERS. Again, defensive. He's going to go around the outside. I think Aiden may be a bit better to it. No, he still leaves him room. Very surprising from Aiden there. Normally, Aiden Griffins will shove you off the circuit if he can. Not in a bad way, but he does like to play those tactics, which is perfectly legal in some instances. But then the Confessor is back ahead now, so Aiden needs to keep it tidy if he wants to rein in the Confessor. But fair play at the minute. Even if that was it, Aiden did very well to hold there, but he may not have the outright pace to battle the Confessor. And I'd say this season the Confessor is probably the outright fastest driver. He showed brilliance and some pace last season, but he just got into so many incidents, spins, things like that, and it really did ruin it. But it does look like the Confessor is checking out at the front, so unless Aiden can do something magical, I don't think he's going to be able to live, as the Confessor, there we go, sets the fastest lap, 8/10 gap. But normal service resumed at the front, and yeah, now there's not really any close battles. I actually think the closest is probably Big Boy Ewan on Alistair Bain, both using their ERS, both level on ERS as well. And into turn one, again, not really a move there. Alistair getting a bit of a wobble on with on the exit of turn one through turn one. Very, very hard to sort of do turn one, because you want to be careful. If you do run wide, you are gonna cost yourself penalties, as we see Dom Smith losing a position to Phil Bardwell. Dom Smith does have that penalty as well, so I think Dom Smith's probably just playing that long game, not fighting, just getting dragged along. I think he knows that the people ahead of him in terms of outright pace are probably a bit quicker, so just play it smart, Dom, and you'll be fine. And the Confessor over a second now at the front, 1.2 seconds. So we're now 1 second. So it's fluctuating ever so slightly there between the corners. But I think the Confessor has got this, barring any silly mistakes and any penalties. We're about just under halfway through this race, and I'm going to be honest. Not a huge amount of action as the Confessor sets another fastest lap, but yeah, not a huge amount of action at the minute. But I think that's just the nature of the circuit, and to be honest, as we see the Dom Smith there going very wide, but yeah, I think it's just the nature of the circuit. It's very difficult, especially in wet conditions, to really gain on people unless you've got a significant pace advantage. But I think a lot of these drivers are very close on pace at the minute. But yeah, I think the closest is Phil Bardwell and JD. Phil Bardwell trying to switch back, and I think he's going to have him there unless he's got terrible straight line speed. He's going to go around the outside. I think he is. Around the outside he goes. He's going to hold it, and actually he makes the move pretty much before the apex of the corner there. So nice move by Phil Bardwell as Big Boy Ewan is finally past Alistair. But Alistair does have the inside line for this next double right-hander. A bit of contact there, and Big Boy Ewan is through. So fair play there as we've got Magic Poop Cannon holding on just behind them, but I don't think he has the pace to actually attack it seems at the minute. And Maya Quimby is right behind Court, currently the closest battle at the minute, but Alistair Bain and Big Boy Ewan. So Maya Quimby actually not too bad. Owen did not do any sweat as far as I'm aware before this race, and the Confessor, there we go, another half a second, 2.1 second gap now. Going back to Mayor Quimby Owen there, didn't do any sweat before this race, so he's gone in blind and he's currently P8. So Owen does show signs of pace on occasion, just unfortunately not when we were teammates, and he could have got a podium at Canada, which would have secured us the constructors. So slightly sore about that still, to be honest. So yeah, but the less said about that, the better. But yeah, it doesn't really look like it's drying up as New Zealand Cam there then sets the fastest lap. A few tenths, about 3 tenths quicker than the Confessor there, but New Zealand Cam did then rejoin, but he is using a lot of his earth to do that, 37%, but in the end he's so far behind anyone, he's got nothing to lose and nothing to gain. So yeah, and here we go then. There's a bit of a queue behind Jack Hickey at the minute, yeah, and they're all saving their earth, they're not really attacking too much. All of them will probably be ringing about roughly the same wing levels, is what I'm trying to say. So it's even harder when you're sort of running the same wing levels, but in the wet conditions it's hard not to. But yeah, I think this is the closest battle on the circuit, looking at the gaps, so not really missing much. As the Confessor, there we go, then now sets the fast lap. And what is the Confessor's ERS on? 73%, so he's not really using a lot of ERS. I think he's using it down that main straight mainly, and the middle straight after sort of the first 3 corners. So I think the Confessor clearly has the outright pace, and he's got 3.5 second gap on P2, and another 2.7 from Aidan to Dan the Man. So I think as far as it goes, Dan the Man will probably be P2 after this race in terms of points. I'm terrible when it comes to points, so don't ask me, as Magic Poop Cannon is in the pits, as New Zealand Cam up to P15. And again, New Zealand Cam can take try and take the and actually, as I'm talking shit, Court and Jack Hickey having a bit of a ding dong. We actually missed that, so it might have been into the hairpin at the end of the DRS straight. But now Jack Hickey is wanting to try and get ahead of CJH, and CJH has got 17% ERS, Jack Hickey 86%, so you'd think it would be quite easy down that main straight. CJH tends to be very aggressive with his ERS usage, as Jack Pearson there getting another penalty, 3 seconds there, as Court is right behind Jack Hickey here, and he's actually got a bit more of a slipstream, and it looks like Jack Hickey is actually pitting for another set of inters. So it's going to be interesting to see actually who pits. That may be, it definitely doesn't look like it's time for dries. That is for sure. But it might just be the tyre wear by the looks of it. Again, there's a fair few corners that will probably kill your tyres. So it's a difficult one. Do you pit and stay out and try and hold on for the next 6 and a bit laps? And actually, here we go then, Court up the inside. Fair play to Court there. That was a bit of a dive, but CJH back around the outside again. We've seen a lot of that this race. People trying to go around the outside and then get in the inside for the next corner. Still side by side. You don't really want to be going side by side around here because you will lose that rear end very easily, to be honest, because the traction zone there we go then. Court is now ahead as there's a bit of contact there as we see Mayor Quimby having a look, trying to get underneath him. But actually, you know what? Tell a lie. Through this middle sector, it actually looks like the track is quite dry. So let's have a look. What are people on? Is it the tyres? And they have gone on softs then. The people that have pitted have decided it is time for the soft tyres, and that could be a big one. You know, I want to see if people do decide to stay out as Aidan Griffins is in the pits. And what does Aidan Griffins go on to? As the Confessor had, I think, about a 5-second lead before Aidan pitted. So the Confessor can easily come out still in the lead. And is he going to go on the dries? Yes, he is soft. So everyone, by the looks of it, is gambling on those dry tyres. And it actually looks quite dry now. A few docks, patches here and there. And I think everyone is now going on the dries. They are by the looks of it. So dry tyres, they're all going on softs, so no one's trying to go on those mediums. I think 6 laps to go, you should be able to manage that, to be honest. So that's nice there. So it's just the top 6 currently, and to be fair, Aidan Griffin's only 10 seconds behind the next car. I think he will come out in second. There's no doubt about it. But it's just a question of, is the dry tyres quick enough? We're going to see that now. 10.6 second gap to P6 as we see, I think, a yellow flag in that middle sector. As you see, JD has sadly spun on the map going onto that middle DRS straight, unfortunately for him. So Aidan Griffins has gained half a second in probably about 3 corners. But where is the Confessor? The Confessor is in then, and DRS is enabled. So the Confessor may have actually timed this absolutely perfectly. It is, it's hit or miss. It's a lot of luck whenever you pit, to be honest, on whether it is the right call. And the Confessor then is on the soft. So is Aidan Griffins, is he going to gain on him or not? I think the gap's still going to be about 5 seconds, but I would probably say, you're thinking, oh, Aidan there, want to avoid that curb. He nearly did what his brother did in qualifying, and the Confessor is out of the pits then. So everyone else ahead of Aidan is pitting. As Delaman sets a 22.0, so it is definitely time for dries. But Aidan Griffins then is currently in P4. It will be P2 once everyone has made their pit stops. But yeah, so the gap has stayed about the same, 5.1 seconds. So Aidan ended up not making any inroads by trying the undercut. So the Confessor did time it perfectly, but I don't think Aidan will be too bothered at this point. I think he knows in his heart of hearts that the Confessor is in another league to himself, unfortunately. So Aidan, I think, will happily settle for a P2. He gave it a good run, but you can only do what you can do with the pace you've got there. But the 2 Red Bulls pretty close to each other. Jack Hickey just ahead has been on these tyres slightly longer, as we see JD on the exit turn 1 having another spin. Unfortunately, his tyres will be cooked, I'm sure, so he needs to drive very carefully for the next few corners, half a lap really. But we still see a bit of drizzle as we see Court and Mayor Quimby now pitting, as Court unfortunately gets a speeding penalty there. But the Confessor is going to be the net lead anyway, isn't he? But Aidan Griffins has slowly pulling that gap, a 20.6. I think he's used quite a lot of his because he's on 41% after the pit, so he's wanting to close that down, or at least get the fastest lap. 4.7 seconds, I think, and there we go then, big boy Ewan, a 20.1. So we're going to see on this lap really, or the next lap, what the Confessor can do, because you'd think he can do that fastest lap as there's a bit of a battle going on. I think no, that's over. But Court and CJH going at it. So is Court going to be able to make a move? He's not going to be able to here. He's going to try and go on the racing line, but yep, way too far back, as we see Phil Bargewell right behind these two, waiting, lurking, and actually even big boy Ewan, to say he started at the back, P9. Jumping in very late. He's I don't think he'll be too disappointed with that. And then up this hill, then very easy to lose the rear end. You actually want a short shift, to be honest. Just try and help with that. But But yeah, and a bit further down then, as I go away from that, they're trying to overtake each other. So Phil Bardwell has actually overtaken Court now. I unfortunately I missed that, as I was actually going to go further down the field. So yeah, and then they go Confessor 19.8. Then there we go. That is what the Confessor can do. He's not even using all of his errs, which I think he can easily get away with at this point. And Dan the Man in 19.7 there. So the times are tumbling down as the track gets drier. Their tyres heat up, and the people get more confident with that there. So Phil Bardwell is actually pulling away by the looks of it from Court, but they do all have penalties, these three: CJH, Phil Bardwell and Court there. So yeah, but we're going to go a bit further down as we see Matt Tibos trying to make inroads from a poor qualifying, currently in P12, 2 tenths behind Mayor Quimby. You'd think normally, under normal circumstances, it would be an easy overtake, but it doesn't appear to be like that at the moment. But is he going to try use his errs? No, he's not. He's actually sitting behind. So Matt Tibos not really having the greatest of pace at the minute, unfortunately. But Big Boy Ewan, oh, we just missed something. Big Boy Ewan and Court. I don't know if Court got a bit of a tank slapper there, or Big Boy Ewan ended up rear-ending him. Very easy to do if one person's confident and one person not. So that is unfortunate for Court there. I think he'll be frustrated under that. You know, he was having a decent run in this race. A few battles, and he looks like he's got some decent pace. So and there we go, the Confessor 19.5. But I think Court will want to try and get back up that field in the next lap and a half. In this, but yeah, it's definitely come alive more now that the track's dried, and actually there's now more grip. So that's always good to see. You know, wet weather has never been one of my favourite things on this game, as Phil Bardwell has now got ahead of CJH. I'm missing it all, so I do apologise to everyone. It's hard doing the camera work and chatting shit the entire time. So yeah, I do apologise there, but yeah, Phil Bardwell then up to P6 now. But I just like a few shout outs, to be honest. Aidan Griffins is doing fantastic. P2, he is 6 seconds off the lead, but again, at this moment in time, you've not really got anyone who can challenge the Confessor, as I think Magic Poop Cannon's actually spun on the exit of turn 1 there. Jack Hickey, I think he'll be satisfied with that, as we see Phil Bardwell making a mistake there, and that is just gifted the position back to CJH there. So this looks to be the closest and the most fun battle to watch at the minute. They're knocking bells out of each other by mistakes and overtakes, but yeah. ERT Jordan, I must have a shout out to him. Currently in P5. Normally he does languish a lot further down in TG1. He has the odd good race such as Silverstone, but fair play to him. He's doing very well at the minute, which is always good, as we see New Zealand Cam overtaking Magic Poop Cannon, as we see Magic Poop Cannon, I think, has ghosted randomly there, so I think he may have paused there or something, as we see a bit of a battle for Court and Matt Tibos. Matt Tibos trying to get in the slipstream there, but it looks like Court has actually got the straight line speed. As Dan the Man gets a penalty there, but he is 5 seconds ahead of P4, so that's not going to be an issue there. But yeah, we're missing it here. Yeah, there's a few little battles, and CJH then right behind Phil Bardwell. He's going to go up the inside. He's going to late break is Phil Bardwell, and bit of contact there. And to be honest, that may have been Phil's fault. Maybe slightly moving under the braking zone, just ever so slightly. Very easy to do, but yeah, I don't want to pass judgment there, but unfortunate there. But to be fair, Phil Bardwell didn't actually lose that many places. 2 places on that, but that has allowed Big Boy Ewan to gain 1 more place, and he's not got a penalty, so he is going to sort of get that position really. But here is the Confessor, yet another win for the Confessor. Definitely the title favourite at the minute. He actually does a 19.0, uses all of his errs on that last lap for a 19.0 there. And Aidan Griffins, very, very well done to him on that P2. Dan the Man, P3. Jack Hickey, a bit of a lonely P4 in that race with his teammate P5, obviously for ERT Jordan. CJH, bit of an incident there. He will come home, I think, in P7, because Big Boy Ewan will get that with lack of penalties. Phil Bardwell, P9, because Dom Smith, and actually it's all changing. CJH down there. Mayor Quimby up to P7. Dom Smith 10th. Alistair Bain 11th. Court, disappointing P12 there. So close to being a good haul of points. Phil Bardwell very disappointed with all those penalties. P13. New Zealand Cam, very disappointed for himself there. no fault of his own, though, unfortunately, disconnected. Jack Pearson rounding out the top 15. Magic Poop Cannon P16, and then Wet Lemons quite a margin behind the rest of them. Will Come Home last of the runs in P17, and then JD P18. So obviously DNF'd. Retired, I think he did, after the spins and stuff. So it was disappointing for him there. But yeah, it was. I'll be honest, it wasn't the most exciting race for the first half in the wet. Very difficult to gain places in wet conditions, especially I think more so on the inters than the wets. To be honest, not that great of a tyre. Big Boy Ewan gets the driver of the day in game, and I actually think that is well deserved. He did very well coming from the back and not qualifying with that, especially it being wet. And there we go. There is your race winner, Shane, also known as Odems, also known as the Confessor, also known as the title favourite this season. So fair play to him, lifting that trophy, well deserved. He did not put a finger wrong, other than I think turn 2 on the first lap, but he was being cautious. There is no harm in that, especially when you've got the pace. Spraying that champagne, fair play to the top 3. They did what they could. No one could stop the Confessor though. So yeah, that's fantastic there. So yeah, that was fantastic on their part. Difficult race, difficult conditions, and they did it. So top 3 then, very nice. Jack Hickey P4, ERT Jordan, a very good P5 there. A very good position from Big Boy Ewan there. Mayor Quimby also very good. A bit of a recovery drive from Matt Tibos, but not quite as well as I think he would hope. But we have joining us Aidan Griffins. Welcome to the commentary box. And what did you make of that race? How do you feel? Happy? Do you feel excited, or do you feel a bit disappointed?
Hello. Pretty buzzing, to be honest. I mean, I was kind of hoping to win, but Odems is far too quick. A couple of hairy moments here and there, but the second's pretty good.
No, absolutely. Now, I was saying it in commentary that I think you'd be quite satisfied with P2. The fact that the Confessor is in a league of his own at the minute. But when you had him behind you and you was battling him and he did overtake you 1 or 2 times and you managed to get him back immediately, were you really thinking I've got a chance to win this, or did you feel that he's so much quicker? I want to try and hold him up as much as I can, but I don't think I can do much to stop him if he gets ahead.
For the first couple, yeah, I felt, if I can maybe force him into a mistake, and then I managed to get a warning for not actually going off the track. So at that point, I was like, look, just go. I'll happily take second. It's fine. I need points. So.
No, that is fair enough. I think you played it very well, to be honest. If you're not going to win, fight as much as you can, but don't make any mistakes. And for this next race, Spain, you showed you had good pace in both the dry and the wet at Portugal. What do you think your chances are at Spain? Are you looking for another podium? Do you think you'll be a bit further down, or are you hoping to try and fight at the front again?
I've done some sweat, and it's not great, so I'll take anywhere, I think, in the top 7 so far.
Yeah, that's fine. And one last question. Are you wanting it to be wet or dry? Do you prefer the wet? Do you prefer the dry? And which one out of the 2 do you think you're probably, better at and better pace?
I think it depends where I qualify. If I'm at the front, wet, because it makes it harder for people to pass you. But I think if I'm near the back, then probably dry, so I can try a lunge here and there just to try and get some positions.
Perfect. Well, I will let you get back on to mentally preparing yourself for this second race. It is at Spain, so Aidan, I massively appreciate you joining us today.
See you later, Softy.
See you in a bit. So yeah, that was Aidan Griffins, everyone. I think I've known him since I joined TGP in what 2015, so a number of years ago now. He was much younger, a much younger Scotsman back then. But yeah, he's. Aidan Griffin's always been one of those drivers where he does have pace. He doesn't tend to show it all the time. He has certain races where he'll be up at the front, he'll be fighting, and other races where he's sort of ninth, 10th. And I actually think the first race that we ended up doing together, I think it was TGP1 season 23 Malaysia. It was the second race of the season, and I'd missed the first one. He actually got pole ahead of everyone else. So, he's shown that he's got pace, and I do like it when he does well because I think he deserves it there. So, everyone will be mentally preparing for this next race now. Spain, very difficult. there's not that many overtaking spots, really, especially now that they've removed that hairpin in the middle sector. So really, I think the main overtaking spot is into turn one with the help of slipstream and DRS. However, in order to be fast around here, you've got to actually run quite high downforce. But the only problem with that is, if you're in high downforce, the only place you can overtake, you're not really going to overtake. So, rule of thumb, you always want to run as little downforce as you can get away with, that still makes you quick enough in the corners to keep up with people that are high downforce. Because, if you're rubbish in the corners and you're good on the straight, yeah, you can get close, but you're just never going to be able to attack. And another tip for anyone watching, if you don't know, the higher downforce you run, the less regen, the less urge you regen, basically. So you always want to try and run that little bit less. And actually, I'd say even from qualifying to the race, you want to probably remove the one or two clicks of the top, the front wing further down, just to give you that little bit extra. But here we go then. Spain loading into the lobby, into qualifying, 15 minutes. Is it going to be wet? Is it going to be dry? I hope it's going to be dry. Just it's a lot more entertaining in my opinion, for racing and sort of pushing yourself. I do think it will still be the usual, the Confessor on top in qualifying. I hope I'm wrong though, because I do want to see someone else really show it to him. But I think this season, no one's so far. You had in the first week, Johners being the one to fight the Confessor. This week as well, you've got in the first race Aiden somewhat fighting him as much as he could. So, no one is really, and there we go, it's dry, so thank God for that. So this season, no one's really consistent, it seems. You had the likes of Kieran, obviously Kai, and Jack Hickey last season fighting for the title. Obviously, Jack Hickey ended up winning it. But towards sort of the second half of last season, neither of them really had the outright pace. Where you had the likes of Glock, the Confessor, and a lot of other drivers closing that gap and also fighting for wins. But, if you've not got the outright pace, realistically, you're not going to win. It's unfortunate to say that, but, you've got to have the pace. Yes, you've got to have the consistency as well. But, if you're winning every single race while everyone else is finishing, second and then seventh and then 10th and then third and then 10th again, you can't really, have a title charge with that, because you're not consistent enough with your pace. And so far, that is what is happening this season. You've got the Confessor, who is so far consistently up there, while you've got everyone else fighting each other and some people being fast sometimes and others not. So, unless something changes, even though it's the second, third week of TGP1 this season, it's you can't do it. So unless the Confessor somehow crashes out of a few races, and then loses his pace all of a sudden, which I don't think is, because he's playing the game a lot more this season than last, I can't see it happening. I really can't. If you've got the pace over people, it just makes it so much easier mentally. Because you're not going to overdrive. But we are going to stay on board with the Confessor for this first lap. He is on the soft tyres. He is one of the first to go out on the pitch, other than that, the Haas ahead of him. But he is going to get himself a bit of space from that Haas, because he's going to be consistently quicker than them. So you want to stay in fourth, really, just to keep the revs low. Around the final corner, DRS wide open, just keep your wheels straight as much as you can. You can't really do anything down this straight. Up through the gears, up through the speed. You want to use all the curb on the left and brake probably about 70 metres. Avoid the sausage curbs on the inside, which he does. Ride the curb on the left. Be very careful, though, of this right-hander, because you can get a bit of oversteer and you can spin. He keeps it nice and tight just to shorten that run. You want to take this next one in about fourth or fifth gear. He takes it in fifth, holds the brake quite long, keeps it nice and tight, which is quite good there. 50 metre board you want to brake here. I tend to avoid this inside curb just to, because it can over-rotate you. On the power, a very difficult fast chicane here. You want to go down to fifth here. Avoid the sausage curbs again. Avoid the sausage curb on the right, because it will unsettle your car. And here we go, Campsar, nearly full throttle. A very slight lift DRS wide open as Jack Pearson's out, and here we go, the new corner was a hairpin, brake about 70 metres. You know, you can take a tight line, you can take a wide line. If you take a wide line, you know, it's a bit easier there. Fourth gear through here. You want to try and short shift normally, use all the road, all the curb on the left. He doesn't do that. Avoid this sausage curb on the left because it can very unsettle you. And then here we go, a very tricky braking point. Very easy to lock. He actually spins it. He spins it. There we go. Then he took that chicane. Not the greatest. So unfortunately for him, that is one set of tyres and one of his laps done. And let's see who is going to be next. New Zealand Cam is currently there. Dom Smith coming through this final chicane. Avoid the sausage curves. Very easy to do what Odem's obviously the Confessor did there. And where is Dom Smith going to go? He's going to be P1 or P2 because he's the only one of two drivers, and it's a 19.4 there. A not bad banker from Dom Smith. Mayor Quimby now goes fastest. New Zealand Cam through this final chicane. Very tentative there, very cautious it looks like, not really troubling the curb. And what is he going to do? It's going to be a 17.2, so that is not bad. And what I'm going to say while it's early on as well, pole position will be a mid 16, I reckon. Mid, maybe a low 16. I'd probably say about a 16.4 maybe. That's from personal experience. I always base my pole times on laps that I can do because I know I'm sort of near the front and stuff. So that's where it goes. But let's have a look as Alistair looks like he got a bit out of shape there when we came on board with him. As we see a Haas, I think, there getting well out of the way and diving into the pit. So Alistair actually starting his lap by the looks of it. So we'll come back to him a bit later. Jack Hickey purple in that first sector. He's got a Mercedes ahead of him, taking a bit of a tight line there. It seemed through that corner. So an unusual line, but we'll see how he goes through this faster chicane here. Quite nice, probably not taking as much speed as he needs to, but it is his first lap. Get it on the board, and focus on quicker laps later on. And what is it going to be? Is it going to be a 52.0 purple middle sector? I reckon he should go pole anyway. Obviously, Jack Hickey's pace, you'd think so. It looks like he will be going provisional pole at the minute through this chicane. Very easy to lock your tyres. I know a lot of people in TGP do run ABS, so it's not going to be an issue. The Confessor, however, does not, I believe, at least in time trial. And through the final corner then, what is it going to be? It's actually going to be quite slow, an 18.0 in comparison to the provisional pole at the minute. So quite surprising. I don't know if he just was a bit overcautious, but no one really on a flying lap at the minute, it seems. So yeah, it's a bit of a lull in the storm as such. We've got Big Boy Ewan on an out lap, so we'll go with him. And actually, no, you know what? We're going to go with the Confessor. He's just starting now into turn one, fifth gear. Use all the curb on the left hand side. He actually avoids that curb a bit this time. Very easy to lose it on these curbs around this circuit. Again, keeps it very tight, very nice there. And what is his first sector? Going to be a 22.0. It's purple in sector one. Keep it nice and tight. Run it then out wide to obviously carry that speed. 50-meter board. Take all or no curb. He just misses that curb. He doesn't short shift, surprisingly, which is unusual there. And then through this fast chicane yet again, nice and easy there. Just love taps that sausage curb on the outside just to stop any slide. Very good through camps there. Bit better, I think, than he actually did last time. 70-meter board, brake, short shift, or not even short shift, downshift. Takes a very wide line just to get on the power earlier. Very good there. Purple middle sector. Through, and this time he actually takes this one in fourth gear. Avoid the sausage curb on the right, but take all the actual black and white, the white and black curb, black and white and red curb. Avoid the sausage curb this time, a bit better from him there, and this should surely be a provisional pole, and it is going to be, I think, a mid 16 and actually a 17.1, so it's a tenth quicker than his nearest rival, New Zealand Cam, at the minute. So not bad from himself there in New Zealand. And Big Boy Ewan is spun at that chicane as we've got the Haas coming up behind him there, who hasn't validated. And we've got Alistair Bain coming into the pits. And we've got Dan the Man also coming into the pits. So a lot of people abandoning their laps or coming on in laps, but Mayor Quimby then through the final corner, currently 19.2, and it is an out lap. So again, I'm talking rubbish there. But yes, so everyone else, it seems, is on an in-lap or just started, but Aidan Griffin's then currently P4, so he's carrying that momentum. A bit of lag there. I don't know if that's me or him, but through this final corner, and again, I've done it again. It is an outlap, so ignore me. Who's on? Who's actually on a flying lap? Dom Smith's on a flying lap. Magic Poop Cannon's invalidated. Owen Quimby is on a flying lap. But we're going to go with Wet Lemons as he's one of the last cars around at the minute. And what is he? He's currently P60, no time set. So what is he going to do? He's got a bit of traffic ahead of him, which I don't think will distract him too much, as it is probably quicker than he. So through this final corner, a 1 minute 14, a 1 minute 15, a 16, a 17, and an 18. And an 18.3, very good to be honest for the times at the minute. Currently P6 and ahead of some TGP1 champions, as well as TGP2 champions. So fair play to Wet Lemons. And who else is there? So Owen Quimby through the final corner as well. Currently P12. Is he going to improve? And he goes P10 on that, and 18.7. So that's not too bad. And then Dom Smith, half a second up apparently. It shows him being half a second up on his lap times. That should improve him a fair way. P9 then into the top 10. I think he'll be very satisfied with that, as Matt Tibos then starts a flying lap, I believe. So that's not bad there. And then Aidan Griffin's 3/10 up on his time, currently P4, a 17.6. New Zealand Cam. There we go. We'll go with New Zealand Cam. Nearly 2/10 up on his time, which will put him on provisional pole. Very easy around Spain to actually ruin your lap. So he needs to be very careful in these final few corners not to do that. You've done all this work now. Don't try and gain too much time where you can't gain it. So, and here we go then. That is a terrible angle. We'll go on board with him just around this final corner, and there we go then. So he's going to go in onto provisional pole. Yes, he does a 17.1. He did, I'd say, he did well there. Just under half a tenth quicker than the current pole master, pole god, I don't really know what you call it, to be honest with yourself, but the pole goat this season, we'll say. So he's doing well so far, but hopefully he does not disconnect this time, because that will be a massive disappointment, as Aidan Griffins is now coming round the final few corners. He's actually on a lap this time, so we'll stay with him. Is it going to be improvement? I can't really tell, because the sector times aren't really showing up on the map, because we joined him a bit too late through the final chicane, and now he peels into the pit, so that is always fantastic. Court is on an in-lap or an out-lap as well, and the Confessor then just about to start a lap, I believe. Yes, he is. So we'll go with the Confessor. We're not going to go on board with him. I do on boards way too often. We're going to, show the game off as it is. So here we go. Then the Confessor, DRS wide open. We'll see what he can improve. I would expect him to improve significantly on what he should be able to do. Through to one, taking a lot more curb on that left hand side. Through this turn 3, very easy again to lose that rear end, keep it tight on the exit to shorten that line, which he does, and then obviously into turn 4, very easy to lose the rear end through here, because you're trying to get on the power and turn at the same time, but no issues for the Confessor there. Into this next corner again, slightly misses the apex there, so he's taking a bit of a different line to what a lot of people are, but you tend to get a bit better traction if you do that. But through Campser then, I think he actually took it flat there, to be honest. So the Confessor, with that confidence, he's got a car ahead of him that is nicely out of the way, and he's 2/10 up on his lap time. So this will be a sub 1 minute 17 lap, but I think he'll probably gain a bit more time through this final sector if he really attacks it nice and smooth through here. Be careful not to lock your brakes. Be careful not to attack the sausage curbs too much. Very gentle on that exit, and I'm probably just going to say it's probably about 3/10 he's going to gain overall, and it's actually 4/10, and then we got a 16.7, so slightly slower than what I predicted, being a 16.4, 16.5, but 16.7 is no slouch time at all. So he's got a good margin at the minute on the rest of the competition again, and here we go. Obviously Wet Lemons is actually on I believe an in-lap or an out-lap there. His light is flashing, and actually no, he's starting one, so he decides to turn his ears on slightly later than some people. And then big boy Ewan into the pit. So you know what? No, Dan the Man looks like he's backed off of his lap as well. So it is at the minute just wet lemons. So everyone else is in the pits, putting their final set of tyres on. You know, wondering when they're going to go out, what lap time they're going to do. You know, ensure they don't make any mistakes. You think of so many things, and wet lemons is a tenth and a bit up on his lap. It's not actually going to improve his position, but it will improve his time if he does continue this. He may gain more time a bit further round, unless he made any mistakes, of course. So we don't really have anyone else at the minute that we can watch. So wet lemons, you are on TV at the minute. DRS wide open there, 33% ERS. So he's definitely using his ERS just under. A tenth and a quarter really, isn't it now? So he's actually lost a bit of time in that middle sector. But is he going to gain any further in this final section? They always say you can always gain more time in the slow corners than the fast ones in F1. He actually rides that nicely. Very nicely for that aggressive sausage curve there. And is he going to improve on his time, or is he going to lose it? And he actually goes 3 tenths up, so he gains quite a lot in that final corner. So that's all right there as Magic Poop Cannon comes round the final corner, but he is now on a flying lap. And everyone else at the minute is still in the pits. New Zealand Cam is on an out lap. Wet Lemons obviously on an in lap. Alistair Bain on an out lap, and CJH still yet to set a lap time in P18, and he's coming around to start his lap in just a moment, but we'll stay on board with Magic Poop Can at the minute. He's got a yellow flag. I think that's just one of the Alfa Romeos letting another car pass there on the map. So coming to the final few minutes of Spain qualifying, you've got the Confessor on a 16.775, currently on provisional pole, and I can't really see New Zealand Cam potentially beating that, to be honest. I think he'll get close, but I don't think he'll beat it. Dan the Man P3, so Dan the Man being quite consistent. I know Dan the Man doesn't necessarily practice as much as the people ahead of him normally, in terms of standings, pace and stuff like that. But I think he sort of longs his practice out over a few days on time trials, so each to their own. And here we go, Magic Poop Cannon through this final chicane. And what is he going to do? He's on an 18.504 at the minute. Is he going to improve on his lap? He does. He goes into P10, so fair play there. And now we're going to go shoot straight to New Zealand Cam. He's half a tenth up, and he's actually invalidated. So unfortunate there for him. So yeah, and here we go. Dom Smith currently on an out lap. Alistair Bain, apparently 24 seconds up. There we go. He's a tenth, just over a tenth and a half up on his lap, so he should improve one position ahead of Magic Poop Cannon. But again, as I've always said, you will gain time in that final chicane. Let's have a look then. So Mayor Quimby is just starting his lap. Matt Tibos, 2.5 tenths up on his lap at the minute, so that should improve him by, one position? Currently, is he going to gain any more time in that third sector? He does 4 tenths up, but it is still only P14. Alistair Bain, 2 and a bit tenths up, nearly 3 tenths up on his lap. So he should probably go into top 10, probably P10 if he doesn't mess this up either. And I'm going to say this now, looking at the Alfa Romeo, I hate the new one. I don't like black. White is so much better with that there. So Alistair Bain through the final corner onto the main straight. Where does he go? P9, 5.5 tenths up on his lap there, as we see Big Boy Hewan has sadly spun, and then Jack Hickey across the line, and he is starting his lap there. So a lot of people starting their laps rather than finishing them, and let me guess, caught also the exact same. So it's interesting to try and find who's actually doing laps and who's not, and Magic Poop Cannon then through the final corner, and that was a very slow lap from him there. So I think he's going to go again on a second run. JD is in the pits. The Confessor then completely missed it. Is the Confessor going to improve on his lap? No, because it was, guess what? It was an out lap again. But you know what? I'm going to stay with the Confessor because I don't think anyone's really sort of on this level, and I do like to admire the speed and the consistency of the top guys, and how much that they push. And there is a Red Bull ahead of them, which I think is going to either get out of the way or give them a nice slipstream. So that's always a positive there. And there we go, nearly 1.5 tenths up on his previous lap, so he's improving yet again. Is the Confessor? He is on a controller, just in case anyone was wondering. A lot of people in TGP1 do use pads and controllers rather than wheels. And what I will do, I'll probably just go over who uses what at the end of this, just to give people a bit of an idea of it. It is more of a casual league rather than a serious one like esports and stuff. But there we go. Then he's getting this nice slipstream from the Red Bull ahead, 1.5 up now. So he's still improving. He is still improving, but is this Red Bull ahead of him going to distract him? He is gaining on it, that is for sure. And it's not Jack Hickey, so it is ERT Jordan. So you'd expect him to be gaining a bit more time. But I don't think it would have cost him too much, but I think it may have cost him a bit. I still think he's going to improve, though, is the Confessor, as we've got a car in the back there. And there we go then. And yeah, he lost about 1/10 there, unfortunately, for him. And Dan the Man is just under 1/10 up on his lap time, and that's not going to improve, and it's actually invalidated, so it's irrelevant there. Aidan Griffins is done as well. Wet Lem is in the barrier, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is the qualifying session done and dusted. So once again, the Confessor on pole by a decent margin, but this time it is Jack Hickey in P2, New Zealand Cam in P3. Dan the Man, yeah, again, consistently near that front. Phil Bardwell, I think actually will be very happy with P5. He's definitely improved his qualifying, it seems, this week. Aidan Griffin's P6. I don't think he'll be too disappointed with that. Again, you can always go forward from not being on pole, but if you're on pole, you can only go backwards. Well, or don't go backwards at all. But yeah, you know what I mean. So waiting for all the cars to basically get prepped for the race, and there we go then. So the Confessor, Jack Hickey, New Zealand Cam, Dan the Man, Phil Bardwell, Aidan Griffins, top 6. Big Boy Ewan, showing he's actually got decent pace, P7. He is a second off the pole, however, it's irrelevant, you're P7, so well done there. Court, P8, doing very well, Court, this season. He showed signs of brilliance last season, and he's still continuing that form of having some good results. He got a podium last week as well, so fair play to Court. Alistair Bain, P9, sort of where he's sitting in pace, so that's about accurate. Wet Lemons, P10, I think he'd be very happy with that. CJH, P11, Mayor Quimby, P12, Magic Poop Cannon, 13, ERT Jordan, 14. Don Smith 15, Matt Tibos again, once again disappointing in P16, and then the two remaining drivers rounding out after not setting a lap time, and obviously Jack Pearson also at the back, so that's unfortunate for him there. But you know, I would say you'd start on fresh tyres, but everyone starts on fresh tyres, to be honest. So it's not good. And is it going to be wet or dry? I reckon it's going to be dry. Thank God it is dry. So hopefully we should have a very entertaining race from start to finish. I've noticed the Confessor starts have actually been quite good this season off the line, so we'll see how he does. It's a long run down to that turn 1, so I think a lot of people are going to be using their ERS to attack and defend. And you know, it's very easy to actually crash and cause incidents into turn 1 and 2, just because it's a bit of a bottleneck. It's very hard to get right, especially when everyone's jockeying for position, if I can even speak English, which I cannot. But here we go then, the drivers on the grid now, getting ready. 1 lights, 2 lights, 3 lights, 4, and the lights are out. And let's see what the Confessor can do. Here we go then, and actually he does get a very good start using his ERS as always, and we actually see right behind as well Jack Hickey using his ERS to attack and defend. And there we go, nice and clean so far, the Confessor into P1. You've got New Zealand Cam going around the outside of Dan the Man there, nice and clean it seems, as we've got the Haas off going across the runoff there. And there we go, there is the predicted pit stop strategies, laps 7 to 11. You want to always try and get as early as possible for that undercut, but Jack Hickey currently in P2, as we see Big Boy Ewan overtaking. Well, I would say overtaking, but he's now going backwards, it seems. So Big Boy Ewan going backwards at the minute. I think it's very easy for you to get barged out and stuff like that round any circuit on the first lap. But New Zealand Cam is piling on the pressure for Jack Hickey. He wants to get ahead of him straight away. He's using all of his ERS. He's going up the inside, a very difficult overtaking move, and there we go. He's up the inside, but careful of those sausage curbs. Side by side, Is he going to? No, Jack Hickey keeps it round. Oh, a bit of contact there. You need to be very careful. And fair play, New Zealand Cam. You go round the outside of someone there. That is a very good. So New Zealand Cam using a bit more ers than the likes of Confessor in front, but he needed to get that move done. And Alistair Bain getting overtaken by CJH there. And CJH is off into the gravel, which is going to lose him a lot more places. And that is a terrible camera angle. And now you see Dom Smith just ahead, moving ahead of Maya Quimby, but here comes CJH abusing that battery as he always does. Is he going to go up the inside? Is he going to go around the outside? He needs to be careful. And there we go. That is the move done. And he's going to go around the outside. Yes, he does. So fair play there. However, he will do this all the time. He'll abuse his ers to get those positions and then just defend for himself. But you know, if you know you've not got the pace, why not? Why not? You may as well. As we see Dan the Man and Phil Bardwell. Phil Bardwell moving up to P4 now, and Dan the Man is on those medium tyres. And actually, let's have a look at what tyres everyone's on. The Confessor doing as usual with the medium tyre. New Zealand Cam, Jack Hickey and Phil Bardwell on those softs, and Dan the Man P5. And this is Dan the Man's problem. And we got... New Zealand Cam once again making a mistake while he is in a good position. Now it's a 1.6 second gap to the Confessor. So unfortunately, once again, not good for him. And Matt Tibos also has had a bit of a spin there, it seems, and I think potentially JD as well. So again, goes bad to worse for Matt Tibos and JD. And let's see what's the closest battle on track. I think it is pretty much this one. It's the Confessor now 1.7 seconds ahead. So we can just ignore the Confessor because, you know, it's unlikely that he's going to lose that lead on the slower tyre now anyway. So well done the Confessor on 2 wins tonight, unfortunately to say. But yeah, let's focus on the interesting battles a bit further down, as we see Big Boy Ewan obviously trying to regain himself after that, as obviously New Zealand has retired. I think out of frustration, to be honest, that he was in the position, and I don't really know what happened. I think he may have just spun it going through Campsa, but if he did, that's his own mistake. Unfortunately there, but Big Boy Ewan showing he's got a bit of pace. You know, I think he's done a few races in previous seasons. He has, and he showed he had decent pace then as well. So currently P6. He is on the softs while there's cars ahead of him are on those mediums. I think tyres round here are a bit of a killer. With the type of circuit and the type of corners it has, so you do want to be careful. As we see yellow flags, I think that is just Matt Tibos going around slowly at the back. Yes, it is. Doesn't look like he's got damage, but he's definitely overheated those tyres. Or, as we see with this new damage model, he may have wing damage. So he needs to be careful of that. If he's got wing damage, you may as well retire. As we see, Wet Lemons has sadly crashed. Very easy to do, but again we've got a bit of a train forming behind the one and only Maya Quimby. Is actually not even, I'm talking rubbish there, Dom Smith, so I apologise there, Owen, as he gets ahead now, and Jack Pearson is looking as well. Jack Pearson, bit of a disappointing qualifying from starting last after bidding it, but I think these three are about the same pace normally, so this should be a race long battle, as Wet Lemons unfortunately speeding in the pit lane there. But we do have a bit of and as we see, as Dom Smith going a bit wide there, and that should allow Jack a better line, but Dom Smith holding that inside line and keeping that position, but he's a bit all over the place at the minute, maybe overheating his tyres if you've ruined it, as Matt Tibos does retire and actually crashes, so I don't know if that was planned or he just binned it. Let's have a look where he binned it, and it is quite late on, so I'd probably just reckon that is a case of overheating tyres. But the Confessor 2-second lead at the minute, very boring. You know, what I'm going to say to this is, you know, Dom Smith, if you didn't kick me out for trying to make an odd rule that made I couldn't use soft tyres, you may not have this boring fight at the front, or lack of fight. Just saying. But the less of that, the better. So yeah, it's a bit of a dull part of the race at the minute. Obviously, you've got Aidan Griffin's half a second behind Dan the Man. Again, both of these are on the medium tyres. You've got Big Boy Ewan about 2 tenths behind these two on the soft tyres. Caught less than a second behind, as you can see there, in his Ferrari, and then CJH is another 2.5 seconds behind there. So a few little trains once again forming. Dom Smith within 3 tenths of Owen, and then Jack Pearson 3 tenths behind Dom, but Owen is on those medium tyres, so potentially he's sitting pretty in. I think at a circuit like this, you can get away with your medium start because it's so hard to overtake round the circuit other than the main straight. So just blast all your rows down that main straight and you're not going to get overtaken. But as we can see, a battle a bit further down, Aote Jordan not doing as well as he did last race, unfortunately, but his teammate currently in P2 as Jack Hickey is, and there is a bit of a train forming as we see Dom Smith running it a bit wide. So I think he got a bit close to Owen Quimby just ahead in his AlphaTauri, and it sort of caught him out a bit with that. So there's not really much going on other than a few trains. So I'm sort of running out of things to talk to be honest. But here we go then. Big boy Ewan using his ERS. He's going to go up the inside. He's going to go around the outside as Aidan Griffiths does go defensive. Is he going to go around the outside fully? He thinks about it, but he runs out of road. Aidan Griffiths taking the racing line there, perfectly entitled to do. And it is, the quote is restored to being as it was going into the last lap. But at the minute, Jack Hickey is not really closing on the Confessor, 2.6 seconds. So the Confessor is and does have, as we've seen so far, the pace. This will be Dom Smith and Jack Pearson going side by side. Jack Pearson is now ahead, and this is going to allow Aote Jordan to have a look as well. He's going to go around the outside. He's thinking about it, but not quite. It's very hard to go around the outside of someone there just because of how tight it is. But is Dom Smith going to be able to get back past Jack Pearson? I actually think Jack Pearson potentially may pull away. It is a 5/10 gap at the minute, but it is that middle sector, so it's very easy just to stay with people because it's all corners. There's nothing really much going on in terms of wrong lines and stuff like that. But Dom Smith does appear to be struggling with that new long left-hand corner that overtook the hairpin. Is Dan the Man has now been overtaken by Phil, but Phil is in the pits. That's an early pit stop for Phil, right on the cusp of the pit window there. So he's going to try and go for that undercut, which I think you can, again, tyre wear's bad. You can do that as he's going to come out way far down, as we can see. Magic Poop Cannon in the background as well there. Alistair Bain within a tenth behind Mayor Quimby now, but wasn't able to get through there as we see Jack Pearson. There's a bit of a gap between Alistair Bain and Jack Pearson, but that I think is more just Jack Pearson closing in, and he's pulling away as well from Dom Smith. They both are, Aote Jordan and Jack Pearson, sort of pulling away slowly from Dom Smith. So not quite, I think, where Dom Smith will want. I don't think he'd want Jack to be able to just pull away from him. Both been in TGP2 many times and for many years as Dom Smith and Jack Pearson. So they're used to, I think, fighting at the front in that lower category, but not quite where they want to be in TGP1, of course. But the way I see it is, if you want to fight the best, you got to beat the best, and vice versa. If you want to be the best, you got to fight the best. So, but as we see, Big Boy Hugh in there is going to try and line up Aidan Griffins, or is he going to dive into the pits? And he dives into the pits then, obviously on those soft tyres. So it's going to be interesting to see where Phil Bargewell comes out in relation to this. But yeah, at the minute there's not really any big battles as we see Jack Pearce coming into the pits, Alistair Bain coming into the pits, caught, and Alistair Bain has sadly picked up a penalty there. But Phil Bargewell, where is he coming around that final corner? And where's he going to come out in relation? I think he will come out ahead of these gaggle of cars, and we see Big Boy Ewan, and there we go. Then Phil Bargewell is nicely ahead. Bit of a gap there. Tyres will be warmed up, which is obviously good for him. So that's not bad. And we should see potentially Jack Hickey boxing, I reckon, this lap as well. He's got a nice gap to Dan the Man behind him. But what I was actually going to point out earlier on is the reason it works well for the Confessor. We've seen it a lot this season. I think even last season, whereas the Confessor and other people start on mediums that get pole, and then Dan the Man a bit further down on the mediums as well. The reason it works for one and not the other is because Dan the Man has that traffic. He can't. It's hard to attack and defend at the same time, whereas the Confessor only has to defend against the person, and even if the person does get ahead, he's got enough pace that he can stay with them even though they're on the faster tyre, and then just get them back. So qualifying is very important, as we do see Jack Hickey pit at the end of that lap then, so that's good for him, and he's going to come out I think in clear air, just about. So we see ERT Jordan in the pits as well. Dom Smith coming down that main straight, still yet to pit, of course, as you can see on the left hand side, the tyres and how long they've been on those laps, and ERT Jordan then obviously just leaving his pit box. So Phil Bargewell in nice clean air, 3.5 seconds ahead of Big Boy Hewen after those pit stops. So that's perfect. As we see Alistair Bain overtaking ERT Jordan as well, coming out of those pits. The pit lane is very long, obviously, as the main straight is very long as well. So yeah, it's it can feel a lifetime when you do pit, and you can see, especially when you've got the full map on, like in the right hand side, you can see the cars coming on the map as we've got a yellow flag, and I think that's Magic Poop Cannon has unfortunately spun. I don't think it'd be cold tyres, to be honest. But that's a very easy mistake to do, as caught then 3/10 behind Big Boy Ewan. Is he going to be able to make a move? He's not using his so I think he's going to bide his time for that main straight, and that's a lot of people do. There's no point overtaking, as he goes very wide there. Actually, there's no point overtaking in that DRS straight unless you have to, only then to lose it on the big main straight, because the car behind has now got the DRSs. Aidan Griffins and Dom Smith have now pitted, so this is everyone has now pitted in this race. Well, I talk rubbish again, other than the top four. The top four haven't pitted, but Phil Bargewell now up to P6, 3 seconds behind Jack Hickey. I reckon we're going to see the top four pit. I would probably say lap 11 of this race, maybe lap 12, and as we can see there, Aidan Griffin's just out ahead of this gaggle of cars, but he's on those soft tyres and he should have the pace and the legs over these two behind. But while he's getting those tyres warmed up, though, that is another story, as Big Boy Ewan really sort of trying to go all over the circuit, as Court is right behind as well, sort of waiting to pick up the pieces. This time he can't get rear-ended because there's no one behind him. So Court, I think, will be very thankful for that. But the gaps actually at the minute are actually all spread out. A fair few seconds between them all. So this is currently the closest that we do have on the circuit. So we're gonna stay with this unless any developments happen. But the Confessor 8 seconds ahead of Dan the Man, so it is safe to say that the Confessor has got the legs of everyone on this moment. And I know I mention it a lot as well in commentary in terms of hours played. I did notice that the Confessor has only done 49 hours, as there we go then. Court Gill up the inside and straight past Ewan, but Ewan is not going to let that lie. 33% ERS, though, I think is better just to save it and wait. Whereas Court, actually both about the same ERS, so I would save it for a few laps. Let your tyres cool down a bit, from the weaving about and stuff. And actually, he used a bit there, a bit of ERS there just to get right up behind. But you're just wasting ERS. You're not going to overtake. You're not going to gain anything really from them. So just wait until that main straight and go straight back through, or try and catch them napping if you can. But yeah. Playtime and people always say about people practice too much, people not practicing enough. It's all personal preference. People can practice as much or as little as they want. I know it varies from a lot of drivers. A lot of these drivers in TGP1 only practice a few laps, others practice a few sessions of qualifying, as we see the top two, the Confessor and Dan the Man, in the pits now. They'll obviously go onto those soft tyres, and the Confessor then will get the fastest lap, unless Dan the Man has something to say about it. People can sweat as much as they want. Like I said, Dan the Man doesn't sweat a lot. He sort of does time trial here and there over period. I used to sweat, I wouldn't say a lot. I do a few sessions of qualifying just to get my eye in. I don't like time trial. I just think it's rubbish for really understanding what the car's going to handle like. Unfortunately, they handle like rubbish in multiplayer, but that's the way it is for everyone. That's really the way it is. The Confessor, I don't think sweats a lot. He is in, I believe, One Hub Racing, if I remember correctly. I think he's recently joined that. So he's got that experience of other leagues to sort of sharpen his eye as such. But But yeah, play times and stuff, I think a lot of people are on about 120, 130 hours. You've got Eoti Jordan, who I believe is over 300 hours of game time. As Dom Smith there, unfortunately, picks up a penalty. As we see a yellow flag there, that's I think that's Magic Poop Cannon, unfortunately. Going for a spin at turn 3 again, so his setup not working well there at all. As we see Dan the Man right behind Phil Bargewell now, and is he going to make a move? And Jack Hickey is back into P3 as he pits. Obviously, as Mayor Quimby pits. But here we go then, Dan the Man. Got that. DRS is going to be an easy move up the inside. Phil doesn't really make it too hard for him. But, you know, what can you do, to be honest, when you're on that main straight and you don't have DRS? So that is Dan the Man back up to B3, and he is on those faster tyres as Mayor Quimby dropping down that order into P10 at the minute, and it's probably going to drop down to P11. Yep, yes, he does, behind Eoti Jordan. Big Boy Ewan and Court still right up each other's diffusers. Still the closest battle on the circuit, so we're going to stick with this one. Not really much going on with others at the minute. And I was going to go over as well, while there's a bit of a lull. I say a bit, but most of this race has unfortunately been a bit of a lull. Get Spain off the calendar, Formula One management, please, because it's rubbish for racing, but it's okay to drive. I was going to go over a bit earlier the who uses a wheel and who uses a pad. The Confessor, so I'll go over who uses a wheel user because there's less of them. So Jack Hickey uses a wheel, Dan the Man uses a wheel, Court, I believe, uses a wheel. Nah, I don't know about that one actually. Just ignore that one. Not too sure about Court. I thought he did. I probably am completely wrong though. I think he does use a pad. Alistair Bain uses a wheel. Mayor Quimby uses a wheel. Dom Smith has recently moved to a wheel. I think sort of towards the end of the last game. Matt Tibos is and that's it really. They're the only wheel users in T1. So we've actually got a nice mix. I know a lot of the bigger leagues, such as other leagues. I'm not going to name any names. Don't want to give them any free promotion of robbing our drivers. As some other leagues do tend to do with certain things. So yeah, it's good that there is that mix, because a lot of other leagues, esports, they're all on wheels, no assists, all this sort of stuff, and it just shows that people always say, oh, if you're on a wheel, you're OP, you're so much quicker. But then why is it the Confessor's leading on a pad? It's good that there's that mix of wheel and pad users, because not everyone unfortunately has room or the money for a wheel. They are very expensive and they take up a lot of bloody room unless you get a foldable wheel stand, which is, they're not very good wheel stands, foldable ones. But yeah, so Court then still ahead of Big Boy Ewan. There's not really anything going on at the minute. I don't really know what else to talk about. But there's only a few laps to go at the minute. The Confessor's 7.2 seconds ahead of Jack Hickey. And the thing is, with Jack Hickey, I would say, if he qualified second and he didn't fight New Zealand Cam, and the Confessor got that bit of a gap, and then New Zealand Cam then decided to spin, I think the gap may have been closer. It may have been. Unfortunately, that's not how it works sometimes. But yeah, so there's 4/10 between Mayor Quimby and Eoti Jordan as the yellow flag as Wet Lemons a spill. So we'll just ignore that. But yeah, it looks like Alistair at the minute, just ahead of these two, is potentially about to be under attack by the soft runner of Mayor Quimby. And let's have a look at the tyre life as well there. So Mayor Quimby's only been on these laps, these tyres 2 laps, while the cars ahead have been 6 and 7 laps. So you'd think it would be a bit easier for Owen to overtake on such fresh tyres, but he is running out of time. That I need a drink after that. Jesus Christ, bear with me 1 second. Well, that was a lunge and a half from Owen there, and I thought that was about to be a massive plane crash. If Eoti Jordan hadn't have sort of backed out of that and sort of gave him room, That would have been terrifying as Mayor Quimby now goes up ahead of Alistair, who is derating as EOT Jordan thinks about going up the inside as well, but not quite there as he's only on 8% is Alistair Bain, so he's not managed his ERS particularly well trying to defend, but is EOT Jordan now going to be able to overtake as we see Magic Poop Cannon off in the background, just getting out of everyone's way, so fair play to him there. But yeah, that terrified me, I'm not going to be honest. When you see someone lunge in a unexpected spot, there is a certain part of my body that clenched that I can't really see on stream. So, yes. And yeah, this is actually still the closest battle on circuit now that the gap's sort of gone up a bit between Court and Big Boy Ewan. So I think Big Boy Ewan has made a bit of a mistake as their gap is now 2.5 seconds. So we're getting rid of that tyre graphic so you can at least see the cars a bit better in front. And actually, I say that, Dan the Man, even though it's the last lap, Dan the Man is closed into 1 second on Jack Hickey. It's not going to make a difference, but that's pretty close. I thought the gap was a lot bigger than that a few laps ago, but I've been focusing on the battle a bit further behind. As is EOT Jordan going to go up the inside? I think he's going to try it now or never because he's not got another spot, and there he goes up the inside then. And actually, Alistair Bain holds it around the outside, but there we go. He's going to go around the outside yet again and have the inside for turn 3. And Alistair Bain simply does not have the ERS to do anything about it, and as you can see, this time last lap he was on 8% ERS. He's now on the same level of ERS, so he's just not able to do anything there. As we see a car as Mayor Quimby then. Oh, Mayor Quimby's spun. I thought I saw something ghost him. I thought it was a lap car, but Mayor Quimby, after doing all of that hard work on the very last lap, has bottled it. You bottle job. Please never bottle it again, Owen. You was doing so well, but that is what it is. But here we go then. Just caught it. The Confessor wins. Another terrific race from him. Jack Hickey comes home in P2 then. Only 7/10 ahead of Dan the Man. So Dan the Man was pushing hard there. Phil Bardwell in P4 with no penalties this time. And fair play to Phil Bardwell. Aidan Griffin's P5. I think he won't mind that. I think he would obviously like to be slightly closer to the front, but fair play. And Court, yet again, P6 in TGP1, fighting with the top guys. Big Boy Ewan, P7. I don't think he'd be too disappointed with that. Obviously, too much. CJH, not bad there from the Haas driver there. EOT Jordan, not as high as he was, but that is still a few points for him. Jack Pearson, P10 from the back of the grid, so I don't think he'd be too disappointed with that, especially after his recent races, so fair play. Alistair Bain, P11 there, obviously after using all of his ERS. Mayor Quimby, I think he'll be kicking himself, to be honest. He could have been a fair, 2 or 3 places higher with a fair few more points. Dom Smith, P13. I think he'll be a bit disappointed there as well, to be honest with you. I think he'd probably be wanting a bit higher, a bit more in terms of outright pace. But there we go. That is the Spanish Grand Prix. EOT Jordan gets the in-game driver of the day there. But as we can see, all the cars making their way back into the pit for the ceremony, for the podium. And there we go. A familiar face on that top step, the Confessor. I think it's, 4 wins from 4 this season so far. So he's definitely doing very well. Is it 4 from 4? I don't actually know anymore. I think it is. It must be. I'm saying it is, yeah. Whatever, I'm saying it. He's won 4 out of 4. It's now a fact. He's won 4 out of 4. So fair play to him. The most consistent and the fastest driver on the current grid. So fair play there then. And what I'm going to do, we've got Jack Hickey joining me. I'm going to come to him in just a moment. So here we go. Here is the final finishing position. The Confessor P1, Jack Hickey P2, Dan the Man P3, Phil Bardwell P4, Aidan Griffin's a satisfactory P5, Court, in my eyes, man of the race, P6, Big Boy Ewan, a very good obviously race from in there. CJH, EOT Jordan and Jack Pearson rounding out the top 10. Alistair, Mayor Quimby, Dom Smith, Wet Lemons, JD, Magic Poop Cannon, obviously Matt Tierboss again, yet another disappointing race. I think that's all it's been for the past 2 seasons for him. And then New Zealand Cam sort of bottling it, unfortunately there. But Jack Hickey, thank you for joining us after this.
No problem.
What do you make of your podium? Do you reckon you are happy, or do you reckon it could have been a bit more with the win?
I mean, happy with the podium. First of the season, obviously. Would I have got first anyway? Probably not. To be perfectly honest, I think Shane's in a bit of a league of his own at the moment. So I'm happy with P2. I didn't really think I'd come away with a podium at any point, especially after the wet race in Portugal. I thought I had a better chance at a podium in Portugal if it was dry, but obviously it didn't happen. So yeah, I'm happy with P2 in Spain. Yeah, and we'll just go from there.
Brilliant, and we saw that Dan the Man, I think it was over the last sort of 5 or 6 laps, was closing you down quite a lot, and it ended up being about a second, 7/10 come the line. Were you just cruising home, or did he just have so much more pace than you that you thought, well, I'm pushing as hard as I can, I can't really do any more?
I wouldn't say I was cruising, definitely not. I was keeping the airs back as much as I could because I was like, I know he's going to come at some point. I just don't know when it's going to be. And I was just trying to concentrate, make sure I didn't make any daft mistakes. Hitting those yellow sausage curbs are horrendous. So if I was going to do that in the last sector, he'd be right on my back. So yeah, it was just making sure I didn't make any mistakes. And I was keeping my ERS back. But by the time it was getting with like 3 laps to go, I was starting to use it a bit more because I thought, well, I don't think he's going to catch me. But regardless, it was a good effort from him. He's had a good night as well. So yeah, we'll attack what's next, whatever that may be.
Brilliant. And speaking of what's next, it is United States and Saudi Arabia. What do you reckon your chances are there? Do you reckon you can fight for those wins? Do you reckon it's just going to be a case of another podium, or are they sort of two circuits that you struggle more at?
Podiums are obviously on the agenda. I think the win at the moment's a bit far off. I'm not really in any sort of contention at the moment to win a race, which was the same sort of back end of last season, so it's sort of dragged on into this season really. But I'm enjoying the fight, so we'll see what happens. Anything can happen, especially in Saudi Arabia, obviously. So, but USA, I like USA. Saudi Arabia, not so much, but like I say, anything can happen. So we'll see.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much for joining me, obviously, Jack. I do appreciate it. I'll let you get on, and hopefully we're talking to you again next week when you've got 2 wins, 2 poles, and somehow you lead the championship. So we'll see how that goes. We'll see how that goes. But thank you very much for joining.
Nice one, mate. Cheers.
Perfect. So another podium for Jack Kickley. I think, as he said, the first of the season there. I think he'll be very happy. Obviously, as you said, as we heard with it. I think as we saw, and as I said, sort of towards the end of last season, he was fighting for that title. He won that title, but then sort of second half of the season, he just didn't have the outright pace to perform. And I think even this season, last week, he didn't quite have that pace or that consistency, unfortunately. But as I mentioned, it is the United States and Saudi Arabia next week, so 2 very different circuits. USA, a lot of runoff, a lot of undulation, whereas Saudi Arabia, very tight, very fast, very flowing, but any mistake will cost you your wing. But that is it for tonight, guys. So thank you very much. If whoever's been watching here, I do appreciate it. I do apologise for my terrible commentary, but you stuck with me today. I think it is me and Mike again next week, so I'll be relinquishing the lead commentary role. But thank you very much for joining, everyone. I do appreciate it. I hope you have a great evening. I hope the racing was entertaining enough, and we'll see you next week in Saudi Arabia and the USA.